When you walk around thinking that you're this small piece of who you actually are, you never get the chance to really express who you are, to really put your full vibration out into the world, And so that was a big area of the impact for me. This like how I started to think about myself and had developed this limiting belief about myself that I didn't even realize was impacting me. And that once I, really took steps to uncover what was going on, what this hidden sleep performance problem was really all about, and to correct it, well, then that's where I started to see this different me come forward, this me that had a fully charged battery. So that, guess what? Actually, people weren't really that annoying anymore. It had actually just been me not having the resources, not having the capacity to manage the ups and downs, the little kinds of things.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I am your host, Bolaabimbola, frequency alchemist, intuitive life coach, and energy practitioner. Daily Soul Bytes, for those who do not know, Daily Soul Bytes Show is really where we feature authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership, sharing their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today we have a very special guest, A Clancy, all the way from Connecticut in the United States. Welcome to the show, Tara.
Thank you, Bola. I'm delighted to be here with you today.
Let me read your bio before we start, Tara. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Tara A. Clancy works healing magic in a unique space. She's an intuitive healer and innovative sleep strategist. And if you're someone who knows deep down in the core of your being that you were meant for more, but you wonder why this is out of your reach, know this. Tara understands exactly how you feel. Wonderful, Tara. Honestly, I am looking forward to this conversation around really finding the meanings behind the sleep concerns that we have. I understand that you have definitely found your passion in understanding sleep and sleep performance. And I'm looking forward to sharing that with our audience today. But first of all, if you could tell us how you got to this place, how did sleep become a passion for you?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear how you came to this place.
Yeah, well, it's one of those kind of stories where when you're impacted yourself and then you kind of figure something out that a really surprising kind of solution, then it just makes you passionate about wanting to share that with other people who are probably going through the same kind of challenge. So that's a big picture, but here's what I mean by that. So, I always remember sort of, when growing up, just always feeling a little bit sick with something, nothing major, but there was always some little thing. I was always sort of tired that followed me into, high school, through college, and getting married. And by that point, a lot of things had accumulated. I developed asthma at 30. I started, all these skin conditions came out, and it was just like, and it just always felt like there was one more thing that I was dealing with. And so I ended up doing, this was like 20 years ago, ended up doing, well, let me say this first. You go to the medical doctor and it's like, oh, here's a cream you can put on that rash. Oh, here's an inhaler for your asthma. And it's like, but wait, I don't want to live with this. I don't just want to manage it. I want to address it. Why is it happening? And what do I do so I can feel healthy and good,
Are you looking for AAA grade jewelry or gemstones? Utter Spirit are those we will recommend. They actually do really wonderful jewelry. They have gifted me really nice lapis lazuli, which is really good for connecting with universal wisdom. And also this shungite beads, which come from Russia, and they're really rare because a lot of the times you get shungite beads which affect your skin, and these beads have been really nice. My son also loves them, and outer spirit, they give back to nature as well. So that is really nice that they are contributing to the environment. And they also send this intention cards. They're quite nice. This shungite card says, I cleanse myself from harmful energies. And the lapis lazuli card says, I am connected to the infinite wisdom of the universe. So there's information that goes with it, as well as them, producing really good quality jewelry. So I will recommend to connect with Otter Spirit, and the code will be going with this video. So check them out.
And so that took me down like really more of a natural healing path, working with natural practitioners. So I did all the stuff with diet, elimination. That cleared up so much stuff. I felt so much, better. Ended up doing a bunch of different things. But the thing is, I was still feeling tired, and not so much like, and this was the weird thing, I wouldn't wake up tired. It was like I'd crash. I was definitely a napper, and I just considered myself a napper, thought that's how I ran. And so and by the time I had sort of resolved all those other things through nutrition, was just left with this exhaustion. I was also, by that point, a single mom of 2 young kids working full time. And so I was like, well, of course I'm going to feel tired since I have like all that stuff to manage. So I never really even questioned the exhaustion. And then one day, you have like those funny things that are bad, but they turn out to be good. I got into a car accident. It wasn't major, but it left me with like this, thing with my shoulder. I ended up going to yet another practitioner to help with that. And after a couple of sessions, he said to me, I think you have a sleep performance problem. And now I love this guy to this point. And at this point I said, well, he's got to be a little crazy. Why did I think he was crazy? Because guess what? I had no trouble falling asleep. And I slept through the night, and I woke up and I felt like $1,000,000. So how on earth could I have a sleep problem? And then that's when he started saying to me, well, you told me that you nap every day, and you told me that you run out of steam, and you can kind of get, a little short-tempered with people. And I was like, yeah, but what does that have to do with anything? Obviously, it's not sleep. He said, you may be getting the right number of hours of sleep, but I don't think you're cycling through the way you need to. I don't think you're getting the benefit of the 8 hours of sleep that you get at night. So that at first was like, oh my gosh, like I have all of these other problems here, like just, life in general. Like I said, as a single mom, young kids, working full time, I don't have the energy to take on a new problem, a sleep problem, And then all of a sudden, when I had a chance to wrap my mind around it a little bit, I was like, well, wait a second. If that is actually a problem that I have, and then now I'm in a position to be able to do something about it. And if I can address this underlying problem, if indeed that is what is driving all the other stuff that I deal with, just the tiredness, the irritability, all that kind of stuff, well, then I have just gone from having a bunch of things that I need to work on to one. And that was like, wow, that was really motivating. So that even though I was tired and even though I was feeling like kind of overwhelmed, it was like, let me put some energy into this, because it may be really the underlying solution that I needed. And we can get more into what I did and how I kind of worked through it. But it was a game changer Absolutely. All of a sudden to feel that difference, to not feel that need for a nap or anything, to not feel like people are the most irritating thing on earth, it was so different. And so, like I said, we can get into like kind of what we did, but the real thing is when clients come to me, often they'll say, hey, I can't fall asleep. I can't stay asleep, or I wake up tired. But and those are the people with like an obvious sleep performance problem because they're having trouble during sleep, right? But then there's this whole other segment of people with a hidden sleep performance problem like me. You can fall asleep, you can stay asleep, and you can wake up feeling like $1,000,000. But at some point during the day, you end up feeling like $1,000,000, like a million deer are trampling you. And so that's really where, where my kind of passion is, and my mission is to help people uncover this idea of this hidden sleep performance problem. Because like you said, so many people do have obvious sleep performance problems, right? But so many more have hidden, and they think they excuse me, they think they have this whole bunch of challenges to deal with, but really there's one underlying one. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I totally value what you're saying, Tara, because, I actually think that being a single parent with 2 kids and being able to sleep was in itself a miracle because a lot of us who really are parenting, especially if we are caregivers, if we have children or elderly parents or, or partners who do not have good health and we're having to care for them, sleep is one of the first things that we lose. But I actually am very interested in, you may be sleeping, but you're actually being deprived of some degree of health or some degree of well-being. And I'd love you to tell us a bit more about that. What is the difference between that sleep and the sleep performance?
Yeah. So, when we typically think of sleep as a numbers game, right? That if you get 8 hours of sleep, then, and you don't have to think about it, you're good. But what we really need to do is think about, sleep as more than a numbers game. Sleep, we don't sleep for the sake of sleeping, right? Nobody says, I'm going to get a good night's sleep tonight, period. They say, I want to get a good night's sleep tonight so that tomorrow I whatever, right? It's almost like I like to compare it to a cell phone. If we remember to plug our cell phone in at night, then in the morning we have a fully charged battery in that phone, and then the capacity that phone has is available to us all day. But if we forget to charge that phone in, then what happens? The capacity is there, but we're running around looking for a charger because the phone's in low power mode and we can't access it. And that is what is happening to so many people. 1 in 2 men and 1 in 4 women have a hidden sleep performance problem where even if they are getting the right number of hours of sleep, like me, they're still not getting the benefit of that sleep. And so what happens? Well, again, to use the cell phone analogy, you can, if you think of the different apps that you have on your phone, they're the health apps, right? So when your phone or you goes into low power mode because you didn't get to charge overnight, well, you'll start with different kinds of health conditions. Early on, when you're younger, it may be things just like chronic sinus infections. It could be, some gut trouble, things like that, skin problems, ear infections, oral health problems, more cavities, more gum disease, that sort of thing. But as you get older, it gets worse. When you get, it could be fertility problems are related to it. Things like irritable bowel syndrome, when it gets like really clinical, that the doctors can recognize it. All those things go back to to how well you're sleeping at night, how well your body's able to do what it's supposed to do. And then ultimately, when you get older, like more, past, middle age and beyond, it starts to show up as, high blood pressure, cardiovascular problems, even things like dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. It's all related to that. So that's kind of physical stuff, right? The health apps on the phone that impact you when you're not able to get this sleep that you actually benefit from. It also affects your productivity apps too, right? You have brain fog, and being able to focus and get all those things done that you need to will be impacted when you end up in low power mode during the day. And then it also affects your social apps, your relationships. Like I said about me, like I could get irritable, and then and what I was, the real problem with that is, when we talk so much about like things like the limiting beliefs that we can have for ourselves, I would think like, I would have great connections with some people, and then they could just like kind of collapse. That person could get so annoying. And what I came to believe was that was just how I was. That like on the surface, I was nice and I was helpful and I cared about people, but underneath, I wasn't that nice. I really didn't like people at all, and that's why they got so annoying. And guess what happens when you walk around thinking that you're this small piece of who you actually are? You never get the chance to really express who you are, to really put your full vibration out into the world, And so, that was a big area of the impact for me. This like how I started to think about myself and had developed this limiting belief about myself that I didn't even realize was impacting me. And that once I, really took steps to uncover what was going on, what this hidden sleep performance problem was really all about, and to correct it, well, then that's where I started to see this different me come forward, this me that had a fully charged battery. So that, guess what? Actually, people weren't really that annoying anymore. It had actually just been me not having the resources, not having the capacity to manage the ups and downs, the little kinds of things. So everything just really elevated when, what I like to say, I was able to bring 100% of myself to life, where I didn't realize I wasn't before, but all of a sudden I was able to bring 100% of myself to life. And boy, what a difference that really made.
Well, thank you, Tara. So when your clients come to you, because I know that for a lot of us, once we know that we are getting at least 5-6 hours of sleep a night, and sleep has been researched to be one of the top 3 basic human needs to keep us really surviving, much less thriving. So without sleep for just 3 weeks, research has shown that you do become quite dysfunctional. So, that is what a lot of us know. But I'd love to delve deeper into what happens when we sleep. Because I know that, from a metaphysical point of view, we go into the astral realm, and that body is allowed to rest. There is a restoration that takes place as long as you're sleeping. But I'd love us to delve deeper into the performance aspect of sleep.
In terms of sleep, you have REM sleep that everybody, who kind of has any interest in health has kind of heard of, right? And then you have non-REM sleep, which is kind of the lesser known cousin. So in REM sleep, that's where they call it rapid eye movement. Things are going on. There's a lot of electricity. We get a lot of dreaming in that stage, different things. In non-REM sleep, there are different phases of it. When you get into the deepest phase of non-REM sleep, that's where your brain gets to repair and recharge. Like the brain, it has all of those kind of, nooks and crannies, like the brain literally shrinks down. Those nooks and crannies open up, and there's a fluid called glymphatic fluid, not lymphatic like the lymph system, but glymphatic, specifically for the brain, that flushes through and clears out all those nooks and crannies. And then when it's all done, when all the housekeeping is done, the brain goes back to its more typical shape. So it is literally repairing and recharging. So what happens when, for so many people that have an airflow disruption, when they get into this deep phase of non-REM where the housekeeping happens, their airflow gets cut off, and they get pulled right out of it, and they go back up to the higher levels of non-REM, and then they come down again, and they get pulled up out of it, and they come down. So they never actually get into non-REM long enough for the brain to be repaired and recharged. And that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to get into that deep phase of non-REM sleep and stay there till the brain does its housekeeping. Then you go into REM and some stuff happens. Then you go back into non-REM, get to stay in that deep phase. And it varies at night. Most of the non-REM has longer phases during the early part of the night, because the brain has to do its repairing and recharging. During the second half of your sleep, your night of sleep, you'll have more REM. That's when you are storing memories, when you're dreaming to kind of work out things, make your connections, all that. So if you are not able to get into that deep phase of non-REM and stay there, you never get the repairing and recharging, and you'll have things that happen to you during the day because your battery is not charged. So, and again,
Thank you for that. No, that is a really, really wonderful explanation of what happens, when we do sleep.
In our modern society, have made sleep a commodity, right? So people say, hey, I get 4 hours of sleep, I get 5 hours of sleep, or I even get 6 hours of sleep. I am golden. But no, it's not. We really do need between 7.5 and 8.5 hours of sleep, because major things happen during that. And we'll get into that in 1 second. Anytime you're shortchanging it, you're overall dampening your daily vibration, if you will, and your kind of your lifespan too. It really does affect how long you're going to be here to, in this physical being, to contribute to the world. So the first thing that we start with always is really looking at that, like, what are your habits now and what's going on with there? And the reason that it's so important, let me say this first. So many of the people that come to me, like I said, will say, I can't fall asleep. I do go to bed at 10 and I have to get up at 6 when my alarm clock goes off. But guess what? Come, 12 o'clock, I'm still peeking at the clock to see when I'm going to fall asleep. I can't turn off my mind at night, right? So they're trying to get the right number of hours of sleep, but they're just not able to. Or you may have the person that says, yeah, I fall asleep, no problem. But around 2 o'clock every morning, I just wake up for no reason, and it takes me a couple of hours to fall back asleep. What happens in that case too? You're not going to get 8 hours if you have that window in the middle where you're just waking up. You may be in bed for 8 hours, but you're not actually getting the sleep. And so this is why I like to talk about sleep versus sleep performance, because there it's obvious that you need some support with sleep because you're just not getting the 8 hours. But with me, I was getting the 8 hours. So it's kind of like that next level thing, right? So what's the thing to do? I always say, look at it on that 24-hour performance cycle. Are you getting the 8, are you getting the 8 hours, and are you benefiting from it throughout the day in terms of how you feel physically, mentally, and kind of emotionally? So first thing would be to help people kind of look at it in that way of saying, let's work on getting the right number of hours of sleep. I'll give you an example of a client that I had who gave me the best reaction ever. We were doing a Zoom call, and I always do an intake, to make sure I know exactly where the person is at now and really understand what they need. So I asked him if he wakes up at night to go to the bathroom, because that's a really, really big indicator of a sleep performance problem. And he said, I do, but I fall back asleep, so it's not a problem. So I said, actually, it's a really big problem. Even if you fall back asleep, if you're waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, that's telling you that you're not actually cycling through the sleep cycles the way you're supposed to. Because if you were cycling through the way you're supposed to, you wouldn't have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. There's a reason for that. Your body and your brain knows that time of sleep, that 8 hours, is when the body is repairing and recharging from all the work that it's done during the day so that it can do that the next day. And so what the brain does when you get into a certain stage of sleep where the brain really gets to repair and recharge, the brain sends a chemical out to the kidneys to say, slow down, don't process it. We've got work to do. It kind of puts up like an out of order kind of sign, just saying, hey, don't do this. That chemical is only sent out when you get into this certain stage of sleep and you stay there long enough. So if you are waking up to go, that means you're not getting into that stage and you're not staying there long enough. And therefore, even if you can fall back asleep, it's telling you you're not cycling through the cycles the way that you need to. You're not getting the benefit of that sleep. So anyway, this is one thing. A bunch of other stuff I talked to about him, and we set up a program for him. 2 weeks later, when we're doing our weekly check-in and I go through the same questions, I say, okay, and did you wake up to go to the bathroom last night? And he goes, oh my gosh, I am just realizing right now that I can't remember the last night that I woke up to go to the bathroom. So it has major effects. And of course, then, it's like, how are you doing during the day? Are you more focused? Are you getting through that to-do list? Are you feeling, stronger? Are you napping? And all those things were no. So when you put a little bit of effort in and use some really targeted strategies, and we'll go through one in a second, the impact is so powerful. And the reason I like to say that is because, kind of like I said in the beginning, when you hear like, oh my gosh, don't tell me I have to work on sleep now. I can't take on one more thing, right? Because so many people are feeling a sense of overwhelm now. I like to emphasize that the payoff is so big to really sort of help convince people that, putting a little bit of effort into it is worth it. It's worth taking it on, basically. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me tell you what was one big thing that this client really needed to do, and this is this is really the fundamental thing that it's the biggest disruptor of sleep. It's the biggest cause of a hidden sleep performance problem. It's airflow disruption. It's somehow the air is getting disrupted. Now, we know, everybody knows about sleep apnea, right? I don't think we would find a modern day person who hasn't heard of it, right?
If you define it for us, define that sleep apnea for.
Yeah. So sleep apnea has a very clinical definition. And it means that you are stopping breathing for a certain number of times per hour, and that you're having a reduction in your oxygen levels as a result because you've stopped breathing, right? So that's pretty serious. Like if we were to think about, you were mentioning before, sleep as a basic physiological need. The only thing that's more important than sleep is air. Right, you can go about you can make it for over a day. You can go for a long time without sleep, but after like 17 hours of being awake, you can see small changes in the brain that are beginning to happen. And so and then the longer you stay awake, the more changes you see. But air, you have only minutes. Right? So it's like the one thing we do all day, every day. And of course, it's going to follow us into the night. And so that's where sleep apnea that's where we get into trouble with sleep apnea, because people think of sleep apnea as a sleep problem because that's in the name, sleep apnea. And it happens when you're sleeping. So of course we would think it's a sleep problem. But if you go a step further, and if you're a little bit of a word nerd like I am, and you look at the word apnea, you see that apnea literally means without lung. So the A means without, from, go back to like Greek and Latin roots, and the PNEA is like think of pneumonia, it's an infection of the lung. The PNEA refers to the lung. So it's really, if we pick it apart, sleep apnea is really sleep without breathing. So if you really want a solution for sleep apnea, and you should, because the sleep apnea machines, those CPAP machines, they're great, but they're a crutch. You want to address things so you can breathe by yourself again, ultimately. And especially a lot of people just find them so uncomfortable they won't even wear them. And so then they're really, tempting fate, let's put it that way. And so when we think about sleep apnea like that, as breathing, as sleep without lungs, sleep without breathing, then all of a sudden that opens up a new avenue for us to solve the problem. And so what we really have to do is figure out why the breathing problem is happening during sleep. And the big takeaway is it happens because of the way we breathe all day, every day, and the different habits that we bring into, that we adopt in our modern world. So when we're able to improve the breathing and improve the habits that have led to the poor breathing, then guess what? We don't get that airflow disruption, and then we end up actually getting the benefit of the sleep. And there's one more thing to think about. When you think about sleep performance, think of it on a continuum, right? So at the top, you have healthy, restorative sleep, where you get your 8 hours, and you get all the benefit of it, and you feel great all day, and you don't even think about sleep. And that's the way it should be, right? It should be something we do to power us up for the rest of the day. That's one end of it. The other end of it is clinical sleep apnea, where we cannot allow our bodies to do the thing that they actually do and still breathe. So that is a really, a big sleep problem then. But what's in between those two things? There's a long space in between. When you leave, I think of the sleep, good, healthy sleep is green, and clinical sleep apnea is red. Well, there's a whole yellow and orange in between those two ends. And so many people are in that yellow-orange phase. They're not getting healthy sleep, and they're not going to get a clinical sleep diagnosis. They haven't met the criteria. They're not bad enough, but still, they can't focus. They have no energy. They can't have great relationships with people. They're developing all these limiting beliefs about themselves. I should be able to, but I just can't. What's going on? So my goal is to help those people in that middle before they go any farther along on the continuum, to help them get back up to the green so that they can be who they are and they can put all of that good energy out into the world and really have the impact that they want to have, and that, quite frankly, that we need them to have, because our world is in a tough spot right now. So it really all comes down to airflow and making sure that you can keep the airflow up.
It's a really good sign of you not having good sleep performance when you're waking up. So that's a sign, that's a symptom that we can look out for. And some people will say, I drink a lot of water throughout the day. Of course, I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night. Of course, I'm going to need to actually get a little bit of water out of me in order for me not to, wet the bed, for instance, So but I love what you said about the fact the kidney will get that alert to really hold back, and all the body organs I would expect to, from what you're saying, it looks like there is something around how the brain really shuts the body down for that restoration to take place.
Exactly.
And I would love you to tell us a bit more about how anybody watching this, could be a woman or a man or no gender, or children, those who are looking after children. What other signs are you looking out for to actually know that there is a sleep performance issue, before we actually get into more ways to actually tackle it, or help self or help others we care for to actually improve sleep performance? What are the signals or signs or symptoms? Because this is it. When you're talking about self-care, it's about knowing what to look out for, not just in the day, because you have to understand that there are so many things happening in the day. So there could be that difficulty in relationships, the difficulty in making friends or in having energy, may be attributed to so many other things. So how do we make sure we are picking up on the fact that this is actually sleep performance?
Yeah. So I love that you were bringing that up, because that's my big point. And I would say the number one way that we should evaluate how our sleep performance is working is by looking at our day. Because remember, I said we don't sleep for the sake of sleeping. We sleep for the sake of the energy that we bring to our day. And so I have in my workbook here, I have it's a 5-step program, and one of the steps is to use what I call the XYZ formula. And the XYZ formula goes like this: if you have problem X, whatever it may be, like just tiredness, or, gut problems, or, brain fog, irritability, whatever. If you have problem X, ask why. Don't just accept it. Don't accept it like I did. Oh, I have kids, I'm working full time. Don't just accept it. Ask why, and make your primary suspect YOURZzz, your sleep. Because if your sleep is doing what it needs to do, you're going to show up, as I said, you're going to come to your day with a full battery. You're still going to have whatever challenges you may have. Like you said, maybe it's hard to make friends, or maybe, there's some other challenge that you have. If you're bringing 100% of who you are to your day, you'll be more resilient during the day. Your daytime isn't going to change, but what you bring to it will be you at 100% of yourself. So you'll be able to manage whatever comes at you much more easily if you have 100% of yourself, as opposed to if you have 70, 60, 50, whatever it may be. So by the time you're waking up in the middle of the night, you have an obvious sleep performance problem. You're just not able to sleep for the 8 hours. So definitely we want to address those things. We want to, figure that out. But what my goal is to help people catch it even sooner. Catch it while it's a hidden one. Like me, I was getting the 8 hours, just wasn't getting the benefit. So catch it sooner, because the farther you go downhill, the farther you have to, the harder you have to work to get out of it. So if you catch it sooner, you'll be in a much better place. And if you use the XYZ formula, rather than just saying, oh, that's just how that is, that's how it's going to be for me at this stage in my life, instead say, wait a second, maybe that's an indicator that my sleep isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. And that is the first step, undoubtedly, to being able to figure out if you might have a hidden sleep performance problem. And I encourage everybody to do that. And I actually have a checklist in there of different random things that you might not connect the dots on. Like I said, like with me being irritable, I never thought it was because I was walking around like a cell phone in low power mode. I just thought that was secretly how I was, and I just accepted it. So that's really the big thing too, that when we think, we shift our thinking to say, let me look at the things that I'm dealing with as maybe the fact that I'm not getting fully powered at night, then all of a sudden that takes us away from just accepting things at face value and saying, let me just look at this a little bit, because maybe there's something here that I can address and solve, and then I will be showing up at full power. So that, for sure, if you're seeing things at night, like I said, if you're having trouble falling asleep, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, to go whether you can or cannot fall back asleep, if you're waking up tired, those are indeed obvious sleep performance problems. But then there's this whole hidden realm that we have to connect the dots on. All the things that happen to us during the day that we're not comfortable with, that we wish was different. Well, let's see, maybe that's actually a sign that it's a hidden sleep performance problem. Because remember, I said to you, 1 in 2 men and 1 in 4 women have a hidden sleep performance problem. And for women, it gets there are certain things that will bring it on for you. So bearing children, what happens when you bear a child? Over those 9 months, you're supposed to gain about 25 to 35 pounds. Well, when you gain weight, what happens? You have this airflow, where I said it, you have to keep the airflow. When you gain weight, it's gonna come some in your neck. It's gonna constrict to some degree the air, the size of the space, the old windpipe that we used to talk about, it's going to constrict that. You can end up with sleep problems during pregnancy simply because of the waking and the hormones that that are released to ready the body for childbirth. All of those things relax the muscles. So now you may end up, your body's doing double time for sure during pregnancy, but you may be extra tired than you would otherwise if you do have a hidden sleep performance problem. And then you have the baby, and then you're going to have an obvious sleep performance problem, because that baby's not going to let you get 8 hours of sleep, right? And what ends up happening is then all of a sudden you just say, oh, I have not had a decent, I haven't had sleep since the baby's been born. Of course I'm going to be exhausted. And what the reality is you have a hidden sleep performance problem that has developed on top of the obvious one of caring for a baby. So you're lower than you have to be, but you just accept it because you think this is just how it's going to be. Same thing can happen for women at menopause. And again, it has to do with the changing of because of the hormonal changes, the muscles relax. And so you get much more collapsibility in the airway. And so you could have been fine your whole life. And then all of a sudden at menopause, you're finding that, you're scattered, you're just exhausted. You feel like the low energy thing, things are just not good. But somebody says to you, that's how things go in menopause. And you say, yeah, I guess so. This is just how it has to be. But I'm saying, don't just accept it. If you have problem X, ask why and make your primary suspect your Z's, your sleep. Look into it and see. And I'm actually developing a quiz for online that people could go through and get some of the checklist items from the book. In fact, I have it in my other book. It's more of a leadership book here, and that has a whole thing. And I'm developing that into an online thing that people could take just to sort of get an idea, but I don't have it yet. It's in progress.
Thank you for your checklist, Tara, because I know that there are lots of times when we have certain issues going on. We may have difficulty with our diet, difficulty with exercise, difficulties with our cognitive functions, with our being able to stay organized, being able to work, or being able to feel at rest or at peace. And it's always, we have a number of different things that we would turn to. And I love what you're saying, Tara, about sleep performance being something that needs to be one of the things that we definitely look into, because the body has its own intelligence, and sleep is meant to create enough rest. The daytime, we've got the solar energy, we've got a lot of things that we can use to really increase the energy levels that we have within us. I'm also a quantum Reiki energy practitioner, so I support my clients to really become much more activated within them. So there are energy meridians within us, within this body, that we can activate to give us enough energy, to give us a different perspective on the way we approach things. There are so many different modalities, and here on Daily Soul Bytes, we really encourage us sharing as many modalities that are possible, for us that come to us, in order for our audience to pick and understand what will work for them, because there's no one hat, I believe, that fits all. We're all very unique, and it's important for us to explore and to stay open-minded about what modality will work for us. If someone watching this is very now fully aware of some of the symptoms that they're experiencing and they want to improve their sleep performance, what are the kinds of things that you would ask them to do?
Yeah. So the first thing is really tackle the numbers part, right? And give yourself, I call it the 15-9 rule. Give yourself 15 hours out of the 24 hours in a day. Give yourself 15 hours of those 24 to do the things that you're supposed to do when you're awake. And really do make every effort to set aside 9 hours for sleep, 1 hour for preparation, and 8 hours to actually be in bed. And things like you talked about, somebody who may drink a lot of water during the day, right? To go back to that conversation we were having about waking up, going to sleep. I have a lot of 3-day challenges in my program to say, well, let's see, is it just a sleep hygiene problem? Like you are drinking water up till bedtime? Well, then of course you're going to wake up in the middle of the night. Stop drinking liquids 3 hours before the end of the day. Before let's say 10 o'clock is your bedtime. Stop drinking liquids at 7. Just plan it for three days. Really tank up early in the day and leave that 3-hour window. It takes your kidneys about 3 hours to fully filter any liquids you've taken in. So I said, do that for 3 nights and let's see what happens. If you do that, you nail down your sleep hygiene, you're still having a problem, then you want to really look at, start at the top, start with airflow. And another thing I have in my program here is just something that we call I call it the off assessment. That'll help you really know if airflow is a challenge for you, and then give you something you can do that very night to as a kind of rescue remedy, and then to give you a long-term strategy to basically repattern your breathing. And that's maybe the final point that we should make, because a lot of people will say, oh no, my breathing is good. I actually take yoga and we do breath, or I do some kind of breath work. And I say, that's great if you're starting from a point of healthy breathing habits. But if you have unhealthy breathing habits, like our modern lives make us develop, you need to get to a healthy breathing place so you can get the benefit of all the breath work. And that's really the difference, making sure you're in a healthy start. It's like almost like if you were going to go, you want to lose weight, and you're going to go on a diet, and somebody says, all right, we'll just eat fewer calories. And you're like, all right, well, I'll just have one bag of Doritos, and I'll just have one bag of chips. It's like, well, no. You want to get healthy habits and then sort of, go to the next thing. So it's the same thing. Make sure your breathing habits are healthy so you get the benefit of all the deep breathing and all the breath work that has really, thankfully, gotten so popular now.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Tara. Do you have any final words for us today before we go?
If you feel like, my gosh, I feel like there's more I can bring to the world, I feel like my vibration is greater than it is, but for some reason I can't manifest it, then think about sleep performance as the possibility. You may have everything you need, but you're just not able to bring it to the day because of a hidden sleep performance problem. And so that would be the angle to look at. In fact, that's one of the things that I do. I have an oracle sleep reading that I do with people to really look at that and give them a really great, sort of understanding of where they are, where they want to be, and how to get there.
Beautiful. That is so insightful. And where can people find you when they want to connect with you, Tara?
Yeah, Vitality Circle, like VITALITY circle.cc, and all my information is there.
I love the title, the name of your link, Vitality. This is really what you offer. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tara.
Thank you so much for having me, Bola. I love talking with you.
And same here. Wonderful discussion. I have actually learned a lot from this. So thank you for joining us, Tara. I'd love to, thank our audience for joining us, and to ask you to connect with Tara. If this is something that, resonates with you, and this is a very powerful tool that will help us set really, healthy habits that will enable us to sleep better. It's not just about sleeping, it's about the performance of the sleep that will allow us to, live our best lives, really. And I do want to ask you to connect with me if you do want to work with me, and also to subscribe if you haven't, to Daily Soul Bytes Show. And I look forward to seeing you next week on the next episode of Daily Soul Bytes Show. Bye-bye.